So, Carolyn, thank you very much. We do have a roaming microphone here. So, as you heard her say, she's willing to take questions.
I have a quick question. I work for the VA in the Department of Psychiatry here at the university, and one of my questions, particularly about AHRQ's involvement in implementation science, or whatever term we want to use, has been in the involvement in kind of behavioral prevention services. It seems like so much of the agency's focus in the past has been on traditional clinical disease management treatment, which is great within a healthcare system. And clearly the money's there, but there hasn't been quite the emphasis on examining prevention, in part because doctors don't make money off of preventing disease. And I'm just wondering how AHRQ can work with other federal agencies and healthcare systems to better incentivize more sophisticated research to, deal with the growing scourge of diabetes and obesity and other preventable lifestyle diseases that are great to treat with complex medical procedures, but not so great for the patients.
Yeah, so that's a really, really terrific question. I mean, historically, we have funded a fair amount of work and still have some ongoing now, trying to improve the delivery of clinical preventive services. But in the face of the challenges which you just so nicely articulated, that's a pretty narrow slice. So we try to exploit any opportunity that we can, all with an eye towards figuring out how is it that we can partner with the CDC or foundations or other partners, trying to figure out what is the connectivity, if you will, between what goes on in a clinical setting, whether that's a tiny one or a very large system, and what's happening in the community. The metrics I measured before about chronic illness management that you can see in HEDIS or in our reports and so forth, it's not that we're lacking for what to do. In fact, it takes like 6 seconds to say, oh, great to see you, quit smoking, lose weight, see you in 6 months, right? Because I've just counseled the patient on what to do. The how part is much, much harder. So I think that there is a very exciting agenda there, and frankly, I would be interested in people's feedback on that idea, and if you think we're missing opportunities, please let me know.
Dr. Clancy, this is Tom Shanley. By full disclosure, I'm the principal investigator of the CTSA at the University of Michigan, and I want to thank you for spending this time with us and sharing some of your thoughts. I was curious, as the NCATS crafts their RFA for their new vision, if you will, of what the CTSA's mission should be. I'm wondering whether you're having discussions with NCATS leadership and where the opportunities with interinstitutional opportunities for developing programs may be.
That's also a really great question. Through the PCORI board and other activities, I see Dr. Collins and his senior colleagues all the time. So yes, we've had conversations, but I would say they're at a pretty high level. So I'm not at a point where I can give you a very precise answer right now.
Hey, Carolyn, Lee Green. ARC has been quite a leader in developing implementation science research and clinical translation research. Can you, without talking too much out of school, let us know what you're doing to help provide perhaps some leadership to your colleagues over at NIH and the various institutes to raise their awareness of the need and their ability to call for and review applications for implementation science research?
We have worked with our colleagues at NIH on that conference and so forth, and I think if there's one place where we're not perfectly aligned, although I think it's also highly appropriate, it's that I would say if there's a spectrum of work in this area, NIH is on the more fundamental developmental end, Whereas I'm really, really focused, and ARC tends to focus on, okay, great, I know it'll work at the University of Michigan or Hopkins. How can this work in critical access hospitals and so forth? So it's a distinction which doesn't mean that we can't collaborate, but I don't see NIH institutes as being quite that close to the ground. And obviously there's something of a spectrum of approaches there. Some have more practical sort of applied efforts than others. But I don't think anyone comes as close as ARC to saying, I'm not going to fund this unless I see the operational people who are part of your work.
Carolyn, this is Marita again. I know that you have opportunities for learning for both doctoral students and postdoctoral students through summer internships. I know that most recently because one of my doctoral students has left to go to ARC for the summer for learning. And so could you talk a little bit more about those opportunities? I think she's going to have a great time. She's working with Beth Collins Sharp, and will be great for her in terms of her career.
Sure. So every year we have a summer intern program where people come, stunningly enough, for about 3 months of the year. There's obviously some overlap between when people arrive and so forth. I would say most of the summer interns are pre-doctoral level, but we've had a whole array, occasionally undergrads, and essentially we ask leaders at ARC to identify opportunities where they think there's a really terrific opening for a student, an opportunity to develop a new dimension of some work that's ongoing and so forth. And by and large, it's been a very popular opportunity. If there's one thing I wish that we could do in a more systematic way, and so far we haven't been successful, it's partly a resource problem, it's also partly logistics, is figuring out literally how to extend beyond the boundaries of the summer season. The summer's great, but there are people who have other times during the year. The internship program for this year is closed, but if you are interested, please let me know and I'll make sure that your name gets on a list so that you can be notified of opportunities for next year.
Thank you very much. Do we have other questions? Okay, well, thank you very much, Carolyn, and thanks for joining us and for your great presentation. Again, can we give her another round of applause?